Well, hello, beautiful people. Thank you for joining in and welcome back to the Shantae Jacqueline Show, where I tackle everything single motherhood. And one of the things that I realize that can be tedious on a mom is having to do it all on your own sometimes. And with that comes things like a lot of stress, and which stress can bring on some depression and anxiety, which for me was a huge thing. And so I just wanted to talk about a few of those things today, how to cope with it, what it is, and then some things that can motivate yourself and uplift yourself. Okay, so let's jump right on into it. So the first one that I would like to talk about is anxiety. We hear that word a lot. People are like, oh my God, I got some anxiety behind they might be nervous going into a situation. And so we kind of throw that word around. And some people think that anxiety is just anxiousness, like you're nervous. So it is to a certain extent. So there are quite a few types of anxiety. I'm just going to speak on the general form of anxiety, which is an intense, excessive, persistent worry or fear about something, just everyday situations. I know a major thing that brings on anxiety for me or brought on anxiety is just the Sunday. Like the thought of the week and having to get so much done in the week, and the fact that Sunday is my rest day, which means I'm going to have to get back to the hustle and bustle of school, work, and all of that stuff. So Sundays for me were brought on a ton of anxiety, and I have since then calmed it down, and I'll talk a little bit later about some ways that I have figured out a way to calm it down. So there are different types of anxiety. I also have a tad bit of social anxiety, but it's not to the extent to where I don't want to leave my house. I'm also introverted, and so that could be a bit of it too. So my general anxiety accompanied with my introversion, it affects a lot of the things I do. And so I'm still working through some of those things. So pray my strength. But let's talk about how I realized that I had the general anxiety, right? So over the years, I don't think as a child that I realized that's what I had. Not until I became an adult. And most of us, as melanated folks, we don't think about mental health issues or anything like that. So until I became an adult and then I looked back at the symptoms, and after talking to a therapist and my my general family physician, I realized what it was. I was nervous a lot. I didn't like to go into new environments, to the point where I would get sick. My heart would start racing. It would get hard for me to breathe. And then so those types of things are what I realized. And for me, the first time was as an adult when it started to get really bad. So when I noticed that it started to get really bad, it was more toward, I was dealing with a lot of stress within my marriage, when it was so much going on and having to do a lot, which we'll save that story for another day. But I do remember I had my very first panic attack. When I realized it was a panic attack, I was at work, and my chest was beating really, really fast. It was starting to get hard for me to breathe, and then I started to get a little bit lightheaded. And that's when I called my supervisor in and I told her I needed to go home. And so, like, I misstepped and then I fell. I didn't pass out, but I fell. And it was just that constant chest thing. So I went to the emergency room, contrary to what I wanted to do. I just wanted to go home and lay down. And the doctor, they did all the heart things because they wanted to make sure that I wasn't having a heart attack, even though I was only like 20 something. They wanted to make sure that it wasn't a heart attack or that I was having any heart issues. And she then told me that it was whatever that I was dealing with was brought on by stress, and that more than likely it was anxiety, and to schedule an appointment with my doctor, which is what I did. I saw the doctor and she wanted to medicate me, but I'm still like really holistic, and that was something that I wasn't ready yet to think. And then you feel like if I'm taking some type of antidepressant or anxiety or whatever, that means that it makes me feel like I was crazy. And that's just something that I did not want to associate myself with. So it wasn't until a couple of years later, I had another anxiety attack at work. Same thing. My chest started to hurt. Not hurt, but it was so much pressure here, like somebody was pushing on my chest. It was really hard for me to breathe. I had to take deep breaths like I'm doing now. And then I started to get lightheaded. So I went home, and the next day I took a mental health day. And then the next day, I still felt that, so I was like, you know what, I probably should go to the doctor. So I went to the doctor and I talked to her about what was going on, and then we came to the conclusion that not only was I anxious because I wasn't sleeping, but I was also depressed. So she started me on. I went ahead and accepted the medication, because I had not done research on holistic ways to take care of my mental health issues at that time. And so with my depression, and I am a what you call a high functioning depressed person, which means I can go about my daily routine. I'm not the person that will just be stuck in the bed all day, although I do have those moments. But I feel like life goes on. I got a lot of people to take care of. There are people depending on me. So it's not to the point to where it's stifling to where I don't get out of bed. It's just I won't, outside of work, it's probably not much that I would do. I stopped working out. I started to, so I had two ends of the spectrum. One where I wasn't eating at all and I lost a ton of weight. And then there was another end of the spectrum when I started to eat too much. And I would just realize I found comfort in just eating fattening foods. And then that's when I realized that it started to get bad, because I still like to be fit and I still like to be healthy, but I would still go out and get a milkshake, or I would still go. Flaming Hots is my guilty pleasure. And so at one point, I started to just think like, me eating, the excessive worrying, it wasn't doing anything but making me loathe getting up. I would loathe, if it wasn't, to be completely honest, if it wasn't for my kids at that point in my life, I couldn't tell you where I would be. A lot of the motivation to get up and do things came from the fact that I had children depending on me. And so I know that I'm intrinsically motivated, which means that there is something within me that makes me want to continue to do things. And it was just at one point in time in prayer, I'm like, Lord, this isn't the life that I want to live. I know you have more for me. I need to see it. Where is it? And so the first thing I started to do, is I would listen to a lot of podcasts. I would go on YouTube and find some inspirational things to listen to. And then that started the motivation. So every morning I would have to start my day with some type of guided meditation, affirmation. I was listening to a sermon or something. So let me just go ahead and get right into, so now that I told you about how I realized that I had it, some things that I do to cope. Excuse me. All right, so I started going to therapy, in which that helps, and I'm so very proud because in therapy I come a long way. I started to see one therapist, and it was, just being completely transparent, he was an older white man, and he was cool to talk to, but I just felt like I wanted to go to someone that looked like me. I wanted to go to someone that could possibly understand the struggles and the stories of somebody who looked like me and could possibly have gone through the things that I have gone through. Not saying that you have to go through what I've gone to in order to be able to help me through it, but I just think that there are some things that happen within the Black community that me discussing it, it would have been a little bit more perceived. I wouldn't have to get the background knowledge to someone who looked like me. Okay. So after a while, I stopped going to therapy altogether, but I still would meditate. I would make myself get up and pray. Journaling was something that I do. I actually have my journal right here. This one says thoughts and ideas. So I would make myself journal. A lot of my journaling, I would go back and look, and it was so sad. Like, everything that I wrote was sad. And I think that was one good thing about journaling, is because you can go back and look and realize that my focus was a lot on the things that were going wrong. And so I think that's where journaling comes in, is especially when you can go back with a clear head and say, you know what, all of these things, I was focusing on everything that was going wrong. So let's try to shift the gears. Even though there's something wrong, can we come up with some solutions? And that came with time. I just was a sad journaler for a while. And so then, like I said, I started listening to some self-help books, a lot of different types. So Joyce Meyer saves the day. I just would, so I have what is called the Hoopla app. So if you have a public library account, or public library card, they have this app called Hoopla. I'll put it down below. And so that gives you access to digital things. So you can do audiobooks, you can do ebooks. They even have like music and stuff you can listen to. So I started there, and I would just Google or I looked up self help books, and then I would type it into the Hoopla app to see if they had it. So I've listened to quite a few of Joyce Meyer books. I've also just looked up books on law of attraction. They help. And because I'm still Christian, when it comes to law of attraction, I eat the meat, spit out the fat. So there's some things that don't align with my religion or my spirituality that I don't do. But a lot of the information, law of attraction in a nutshell, is just faith. You know, it's just an increase in faith, trust in knowing that you believe and believe wholeheartedly. But the one thing you do need to just pray and ask God to say, Lord, am I believing for what you desire for my life? Anyway, so the podcast, I listen to podcasts a lot. I'm more of, again, a self-help podcaster person. So I don't have a lot of podcasts that are like jokesters or people that are like doing gossip and stuff like that. Again, a lot of my podcasts are church ministries. There is one, therapy for Black girls, things like that I know that will edify me. Because right now, if I were to listen to gossip and drama and all of that, it would just add to me as a stressor because I'm a feeler. So I do realize that a lot of books that I read, they have to be focused on the positive and affirming and all of those things and business and all that stuff, because that's what I needed. And another thing is my vision board. So I put a vision board right over in front of my bed, and I put all the things that I desire. Excuse me. And I've also put some scriptures and some positive sayings and things like that. So that way, when I open my eyes and I look out into what's in front of me, I see the vision of what I want. And even though it doesn't look or feel like what's on that vision board, I know it's coming if I trust and believe hard enough. And then I have affirmations like everywhere. I have affirmations on my vanity mirror. I have affirmations in my bathroom on my mirror. Instead of using little post-it notes like Dan Mary Jane, I just literally write on my mirror with a dry erase marker. And so I find some things that I need to hear, and I just put those on my write those on the mirror. I change them every couple of months, but if it's something that I felt like I still need, I will still clean the mirror and just rewrite it back. Another thing that I did, like I said, I'm a feeler, so I really had to watch what I see and then the things that I hear, which is what I said. Like, I listen to a lot of affirmations. I listen to a lot of positive, uplifting music and the audiobooks. So another thing that I had to do was change who I followed on social media. So all the drama, the love and hip hop stuff, the Real Housewives, I still indulge in the Housewives of Atlanta, but I don't follow them on social media anymore. Because it would, it's sometimes what their drama kind of affects you when you're looking at it all the time, and it's just a lot. And our culture, what's going on today, is just too much. A lot of times I don't know what's happening with the news, because with the news it brings a lot of anxiety because I don't know what the hell 45 got going on out there. So I find out once I see that the buzz is constantly being talked about, then I'll go check and see what is it, but I don't check every day. So editing who I followed on social media. And so then I deleted all of those, and then I will look for positive affirmation people to follow, people who are uplifting. So, following a lot of ministries. I follow a lot of like law of attraction guru types of people. But again, I'm at the stage where I just eat the meat, spit out the fat, if that makes sense. And another thing that I had to realize is that I needed to be kind and gentle to myself and know that this is a process. Some days I'm wake up and I'm like ready to take on the world, and I can do all things, okay? And I'm like, yep, Christ gave me the strength. I can do this. And there are times where, yes, I know Christ gave me the strength, but I'm struggling here. So Lord, if you hear me, I need you to help me, because it ain't gonna get done no other way. So those are some things that I do. And then I had to remind myself that my brain is indeed tricking me. So, and that was the one thing, because I know that we have to realize that depression, anxiety, all mental health issues are just a chemical imbalance. So if I feel overwhelmed about something, I just have to stop and take a deep breath now, and to remind myself that my brain is tricking me, that there are people who love me, that this is not the end of the world, that things will get better. So the one the one thing that I do remind myself of every day is when I start to feel that way, I take a lot of deep breaths and I remind myself that things are working out for me. Things are always working out for me. Even when it doesn't look or feel like things are working out for me, things are working out for me. And I, it's on my merit still, because if I can tell myself, yes, it's crazy, I'm single and I'm raising 3 kids and 2 of those are boys, and there is no consistent male figure in their life, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to teach them how to be strong men by the time they leave here, but things are working out for me. Things are working out for them. Even when it doesn't look or feel like things are working out, things are working out for me. And if I trust and believe that long enough, and when I tell myself that long enough, you start to believe. Because if I feel like, if I can believe that I'm trash, I'm a horrible person, there's nothing going right in my life, if I can be those things because my depression and my anxiety are trying to remind me of those things, then what if I change that thought? And if I tell myself the affirmative enough, I will believe it eventually. So that is it. That was a lot. And I think for a little while, because I really have a heart to make sure that people who look like me fully understand the significance of mental health issues, and that is not that you're crazy or anything is wrong with you, but just that these are things and you just happen to have a chemical imbalance, right? Or we just might have a life moment. It may not be consistent depression. You might just have had a life moment and it hit you really hard. So instead of staying there, finding ways to know and finding a therapist. I do see a therapist now, and she's a black woman, and she's a little bit older, and I think that has really helped me in navigating through the place that I am right now. So I'll be speaking on this for a while, because I think it is a part of when you are a single parent. There's so many stressors, right? And so we just have to learn how to handle stress, because it ain't going nowhere, right? So we just have to figure out ways to combat that thing while we continue to do life. So yeah, that's all I have for you all. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you later. Okay, bye.